This is the Your Money Hour podcast. I am your host, Dakota Grady. Welcome to the show, everybody. Whether you're in California or South Carolina, thank you for joining us. We're actually on being heard in 9 countries, so thank you all for listening to the Your Money Hour podcast. If you're struggling with your finances and you're tired of worrying about your income, how you can pay your bills, contact me, Dakota Grady, at dakotagrady.com for resources to handle your money to take you from financial stress to financial success. And if you have a business, you need help with accounting, taxes, and advisory, contact me as well at dakotagrady.com. Resources there for you to help you with your business for accounting, taxes, and advisory. So today's guest is Miss Charlene Ketchum of She Confidential. And I met Charlene about 2 weeks ago. She's doing a webinar, and I wanted to invite her to be on on my podcast. I actually just did her podcast earlier today, so I wanted to reciprocate that and just let her share her story with you. So without further ado, Miss Charlene, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to chat again.
Yes, ma'am. So tell everyone about who you are and what you do, Charlene.
I'm born and raised in the Midwest in St. Louis, Missouri, and I am super passionate about seeing Black women thrive. And what I mean by thrive, I want to see Black women, maximize opportunities for self-care, make mindful, intentional choices that allow us to flourish in our careers without being broke down. So that's who I am, what I care about. In terms of what I do for a living, I'm a licensed Missouri attorney. I'm a content development strategist. I've done that in June of next year. It'll be 20 years. I've been in content strategy and development. That's crazy. It was like my first job right out of undergrad. So time flies. So it'll be 20 years doing that. I've had my own consulting business for 10 years, and I started She Confidential in the middle of the pandemic. It started out as a way to try to expand and continue this women's group that I had been doing in person. And when the pandemic happened, we couldn't connect in person. So I thought, how can I, continue to keep this going? And from just starting to want to try to keep my group connected, it blossomed into something to how can I reach women around the and help them like maximize self-care and be able to thrive professionally in their businesses and careers. So that's how She Confidential was born. So that's what I do and what I care about.
Wow. So talk about your journey to becoming a lawyer and then what you learned as well from people who are lawyers. I mean, people think high incomes, you're making good money, you're happy. So talk about your journey and then your story as well.
Yeah. So at first, I'm gonna blow people's mind. Like, I don't know why a lot of people think that lawyers make all this money, but that's not always the case. I don't know the percentage breakdowns, but it definitely is with all things. It depends on what you do, and this is going to be relevant to your audience when you talk about the debt that most people incur to become an attorney. You got to deduct that from whatever earnings they're generating. So when I think about liabilities and debts, and even when we just talk about investing in ourselves, people think it's just about the money, but it's more than just the money. It's about what you're investing in terms of your time, your energy, and your health. And that is very applicable when we talk to other Black people. And like I focus on Black women in particular, because we know that Black women are the leading group of dying of heart disease, and Black people in general heart disease. And a lot of people might attribute that to, diet and lifestyle choices, but lifestyle choices also include stress from finances. They also include stress from the job that you have. And a lot of us have to stay in jobs because we need to make the money to deal with the finance, the debt that we've incurred. So a lot of lawyers actually don't make all that money that you might think. And a lot of lawyers who are making a lot of money are really sacrificing a lot of their personal health and wellness to sustain those salaries. And they're likely not fulfilled. I don't know the stats offhand, but there's a very large percentage of attorneys who actually leave the profession and don't practice law within a 10-year window. And when you look at the investment that you make in terms of money and time and blood and sweat and tears, that's really dismal. I have often said I don't regret going to law school because it was going to law school that helped me, change my way of thinking It allowed me to really learn how to be more strategic and assessing risk and things that are really valuable. It also, I gained a lot of confidence from the doing of the process, like going to law school, taking the bar exam and passing it on one try was not easy. It was one of the most difficult things ever. I went to school full time I went part time. The part time program for law school was only one class less than going full time, one class less. And I was also working full time in publishing on multi-million-dollar revenue generating projects. So I had a very high stakes job and I had law school on top of that. I was a non-traditional law school student because I was in my late 20s. I had a mortgage at the time. I was grown. So I had grown folks' responsibilities. And so it was tough on my body. I didn't sleep a lot. I slept maybe 3-4 hours a night because, again, I didn't live off law school loans. I needed the loans to pay my tuition, but I was still working full time to pay my life bills, to live. And that took a huge toll on me physically and mentally, emotionally, and everything. And so that experience in law school taught me, when I did different internships, I got to actually see, because at first I wanted to go into healthcare law because I've been working in the healthcare space in some shape or form for so long. And I knew it would be lucrative because I was like, oh, I can make all this money and do something that I know and enjoy. But then when I did those internships, and I recommend that to anyone who is considering a career change, even if you're a seasoned person in your current career and you're thinking of transitioning to something else, if you don't do an internship, you can always shadow somebody. And I say shadow versus just doing an informational interview, because then you get to see like how they living for real. Because people, you'll see them making all this money and they'll tell you, oh, I love what I do, I'm passionate. I need you to be in the office with them and see how they feel when they have to miss their kids' practice or their kids' game because they got to stay and work late. I need to see how they deal with clients that they can't stand, but they're having to work with these people because they need to make the money. Like, I need you to see them with coworkers that are bosses, managers that are getting on their nerves, but they can't get away from them because they need the money. So you want to see people in their work element to get the full picture. And that will not necessarily to dissuade you from doing that, but you need to have all the information before you invest that money and time into making that change. So this is for people who are, younger and thinking about going to college for something, or for those of us who are seasoned and might be thinking about making a career transition. Get all the facts before you invest your effort and time and money. And so I'm so thankful that I did that when I was in law school, because during my internships, I got to see what it was like for in-house attorneys in healthcare facilities, in healthcare hospitals and firms. And none of them were happy. Mm. At least not the women. The women definitely weren't. Mm. And the reason I make the distinction between the men and the women is because we know statistically women carry a disproportionate load of the household. Mm. So if you have children, even though you may have this like high demanding job, you still have to go home and do a lot of the things at home. Otherwise, you're going to feel that, that guilt because you're not neglecting your partner, you're neglecting your kids, you're probably already neglecting your health. Mm-hmm. And when I got to see that, I was like, I don't want that. I don't want that life. I don't want that life. And I went to law school. I started in 2007. And that was during the last, economic crisis. That was when the housing market crashed and everybody was like, the sky is falling. I had just bought my first house in 2006. I started law school in 2007. Everything economically was cray. And I was halfway through law school when I started doing these internships that showed me like, even these lawyers who are making all this money are miserable. And I realized at that point that I had a choice. I had a choice to make. Now, it wasn't about me leaving law school because I knew I still wanted to be an attorney, but I got to choose what moves I wanted to make after that. Do I want to still pursue these careers because it's going to help me make all this money, but then I'm going to be miserable? Or do I want to try to create my own opportunity, create my own lane where I can have a little bit of both? Now, when we make that choice to create our own lane, that means the process is probably going to be a little slower. It's going to take a little bit longer. And that's the part where people get stuck and caught up. And I know you can appreciate that, Dakota, because when you talk to people about finances and, using cash, that's why people don't like to use cash, because when you're using cash, that means you might have to wait a little minute, defer those dreams a little bit. But that's what you need to do to not get caught up. Like, you laughing, but that's true.
Very true.
Like,
I think that's why people go into debt because they can get it now. They have to wait for it. Then they have a life cycle of not waiting. Then they have a life cycle of debt too. And they're like, oh, I'm stressed out.
you think? Like, hey, what did you think this was gonna be?
Right.
I mean, for real. Like,
Right.
my people, I say this with love, and even though I don't know who everybody is listening and watching, I love you because you are human. And I want you to know that whoever your higher power is wants you to thrive and live well. And I don't care where you came from or what you're going through right now. I don't care. Everybody all scared because of this recession thing. That changes nothing. That changes nothing for where you can go and what your journey can be. That does not diminish your choices. That just means that you got to really go back and work on your self-awareness, be very strategic, and be mindful of what you invest in. And remember, when we talk about investments, we're talking about our money, but we're also talking about who we choose to help us. So working with somebody like Dakota Grady to get you right on your finances. We're talking about how you spend your time. We're talking about how you take care of your body, like your sleep, how much you're moving, what you're consuming in terms of TV, social media, food, liquor, all that stuff. So we got to look at all these investments and we got to think about like, where do I want to be? Not like next month, not 3 months from now, not 6 months, not a year from now. Like, where do I want to be when I am old and gray? How I want to be living? Like, did you ever watch, oh my gosh, I'm hearing a theme song in my head with JJ.
Good times.
Good times. Oh, Charlene, good times. So you think about on Good Times, there was one of their neighbors was so in dire straits financially. She was eating cat food and everything. And that can happen like in real life. To use a real life example, there are people who are not able to buy their medication that they need. They're choosing between their medication and whether I can turn on the lights or turn on the heat in my house in the wintertime because my finances are so messed up. And people often think that these supposed like high earners, like doctors and lawyers, aren't people impacted by that. I'll tell you that attorneys have such high rates of alcoholism and depression. In part, it's because of the nature of the job. And it's also in part because of the culture of law school is very competitive and it really is designed to break you down. And so it's kind of like survival of the fittest, and med school is the same way. And so that emotional trauma that you go through and you're conditioned to like just break yourself down. But a lot of it also is because we're not clear on our choices. We're not mindful about our choices. We're not intentional in building habits that will support us having the life that we want to have when we're older, when we're old and gray. Do you still want to be dealing with like all this debt because you wanted to have a certain type of car, because you wanted to have a certain type of house and everything? Do you still want to be dealing with that when you're 80 years old? And instead of thinking about like what you want to have, I want you to think about how you want to feel. Like, how do you want to feel 80 years from now, 50 years from now, 30 years, 10, 20 years from now? How do you want to feel next week? Because that'll change a lot of the choices that we make today. Because again, I know that it's unavoidable, sometimes, or it may be the best choice for you to incur some debt and make certain choices, but you got to be clear on why you're doing what you're doing. And that relates to your job choices and everything. And so to connect it back to my journey, when I was in that internship and I saw all these attorneys making all this money and they were miserable, I decided I don't want to go the corporate route. I don't want to go the firm route. And so when I finished law school, I actually resigned from my very comfortable, happy 9 to 5 full-time corporate job where I was working in content strategy and development. And I decided to start my own consulting firm. And the reason I share this example is because I want to emphasize to people that you already have all the skills that you need to make all the money you need. I'm going to say that again. You have everything already in you, in your head, in your heart, and that passion. You have it all to make the money that you need to sustain the kind of life that will allow you to thrive. Now, when I talk about a life that's going to allow you to thrive, that's not about the material things, but I'm talking about thriving, like being joyful, being as healthy as you can possibly be. And so when I really thought about that, what I want my life to look and feel like, I decided I got to do something different. And so I left my job, and I didn't do it spontaneously. I didn't just quit on a whim. I was thinking about this as I saw how these folks didn't have any type of life harmony, life work harmony, and they didn't really have a lot of choices, even though they were making the money. So I love starting my consulting firm that allowed me to work as a volunteer attorney at non-for-profits. And that allowed me to serve my people in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do before. So I was making 6 figures in my consulting business, doing the work that I had been doing already and at my 9 to 5. So I was able to earn more, work less, and work how I wanted to work and on what I wanted to work on and with whom I wanted to work. And take care of all my adulting stuff. But then I was also able to give back. And so that made me feel good, and that gave me work-life harmony. When I was able to do that, that gave me open the world for me in terms of options, because I didn't grow up seeing people around me having those kind of options. My parents did not go to college. My parents were not 6-figure earners. I don't think I knew anybody in my immediate family who earned 6 figures. And I didn't know anybody in my family who had a quote unquote like professional job or jobs that would allow them to design the life that they wanted. It was just survival mode. So I grew up really conditioned, like, this is what you got to do to survive. And that's why I appreciate, Dakota, that you talk so much about just mindset and the power of our minds. Because when you decide, I'm not choosing that survival mode anymore, I'm a grown up now. Like when you're a child, you're very vulnerable to what the grown folks are doing. But when you're an adult, you get to say, this ain't working for me. This doesn't feel good. This doesn't align with where I want to be. And you're cheating the world and you're disrespecting your higher power because you are not living to your full potential. So whether you are in a job that's breaking you down or you piling on all this debt because you don't want to defer some of these desires, you're cheating yourself and you're cheating the people you're supposed to be serving, your clients, your community, your family. And this is why we have to be intentional about the choices that we make and remind yourself every day, I'm the boss. Like, that's what being a boss means. Being a boss is not like this power thing that some people have perverted into. Being a boss means that you get to design the life that allows you to maximize your purpose and your joy. That's so freaking huge. And that's how we honor our parents, because, we talk a lot about what our people may not have had and how they couldn't help us and what they didn't teach us. But you know what they did? They gave us the grit that we have to be able to make these choices so that we can do something different. And that's how we honor them. We don't honor our parents and the folks who came before us by staying in that hustle and grind and survival mode. No. Now that they've done that, they have created a foundation for you to start thinking different and doing something different so that you can live a little better. And that's how you honor them. And so when I was able to do that, that just opened the world for me. And then some other pivotal things was when I saw one of my mentors at a former that I used to work with, she actually walked away from a huge, like, this lady was making bukus of money, y'all. Bukus of money. And she resigned. And at the time, we all were like, maybe she's having a nervous breakdown. Because, like, who walks away from all that money and that title and prestige? And they had this nice home and everything. And she and I went to lunch and she told me, I had to walk away because it was sucking the life out of my soul. it wasn't feeling good. It was impacting, it was taken away from what really matters to me. And she said, what really matters to me is my family, being there for my husband, being there for my kids, being able to, support my faith and show up in my church. I can't do these things because when I leave this job, I'm so broke down emotionally and spiritually. I'm depleted. So the money is not enough. It can't make up for that. And the reason she had that awareness is because she knew what her purpose was. That's why we got to be mindful about our choices. We always get to choose. And the beauty is that because she didn't have her life set up around this big salary, that's the thing I want y'all to don't let that go over your head. Because if she had just had this big salary and all she was doing was just living at the max of her salary, which is what a lot of us do. If we making 150, we gonna have bills that's gonna be 160. So somebody ain't getting paid full every month. And when you're living like that, that keeps you in hostile environments way past the expiration date. Like,
Mm.
there is a season you're gonna have to hustle in. You're gonna have to hustle for a minute to get things going, but a lot of us are hustling way past the expiration date because we've trapped ourselves, we boxed ourselves in with these lifestyles.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Man, it's good stuff right here. It's good stuff. Yeah, so talk about how you empower the people in your community that she could, because this right here is empowering. I mean, it's impactful. So talk about that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the She Confidential platform, we've got three different features. The podcast where I talk to other Black experts like Dakota, and we talk about things related to entrepreneurship, not just about like the services they provide. So it's two purposes to the podcast. I want the audience to be introduced to Black entrepreneurs who can help them live well, personally and professionally. The second purpose of the podcast is to talk about like the real side of being an entrepreneur. Like it's about their journeys because we learn when we hear about the journeys of other people, how they navigated starting a business. Dakota talked about how he started a business with just mindset and a laptop. Or talking about if you're a mom, how do you manage running a business when you've got kids and you've got a spouse, and how do you tend to those folks' needs? How do you deal with running a business during a recession, during a pandemic? So we have honest conversations about when life gets done, but you still got a business to run. And you also get introductions to people that you may need to work with in your own life. So those are the two purposes of the podcast. The second feature of the She Confidential platform is the online community for women, and specifically for Black women who are in business, not just for business owners, but any Black woman who wants to have networking opportunities with other women, but also wants to be able to have vulnerable conversations about their journey and struggles and triumphs as they design a harmonious life, both at work and at home. And I emphasize triumphs because for a lot of us, we kind of outgrow our circles that we grow up in. And being an entrepreneur can be very lonely because you may not have people in your circle who understand what the struggle can be like to attract and retain good clients, who understand the stressors that come with the changing economic times, or that you feel comfortable celebrating your successes. Because sometimes you can't tell people, I just landed this great contract, or I just exceeded my financial goals for this quarter, because they might be thinking you're bragging, or they might be like, hey, can I hold, 500 since you're doing good? So you need this circle of people that you can be real with. But we also have monthly workshops where I bring in other experts who can help give you some guidance related to your business. Like we had somebody come in and talk about trademark and copyrights. We're going to have somebody come in and talk about taxes as they relate to running your business as an entrepreneur. And then we also have self-care focused workshops where we talk about saucy things, like saucy, sexy things. And we talk about fun things and just all the other things that are important in having a balanced, well life as a woman, as a Black woman. The third component to the She Confidential platform is our business coaching program. So this is a new feature, and this was something that I was able to add to the roster in response to what people were asking of me. And this is where making choices and having that self-awareness is so golden, because I have been informally working with several people that I had met on the show through the course of my podcast and just in my personal life to help them figure out how to structure their business so that they could thrive professionally without being broke down, getting clarity around what type of clients we're trying to attract, their communications. Because again, I have 20 years in content strategy and development. So helping them streamline and maximize those communications so that they can actually convert clients, helping them design their day so that they're actually doing the things that generate revenue, helping them develop processes and templates so that when they do have the money to do it, they can outsource and hire help. Helping them do that planning so that they can align what they're doing in their business with their personal life so that their personal needs and vision is what's driving the business, not the reverse. Because that's what happens a lot of times. We end up getting in the work and the weeds of the work that are the rest of our life just has to revolve around the business. And you might have to do that for a season when you're in that hustle season and you're building, but you can have a plan and a strategy and focus and self-awareness that allows you to know when you can step away from that and have a lighter existence as a business owner. So that's the third component.
Gotcha. All right. So before we close, what can you leave the audience with? Like one piece of advice before we close, and you can end out with telling people how they connect with you as well.
So you can connect with me by going to sheconfidential.com. So that's SHE and then confidential, She Confidential. And the reason the platform is called She Confidential is because it's focused on women, but we are talking about the things that we traditionally don't talk about, in business. We're talking about those vulnerabilities. We're talking about those fears. We're talking about those triumphs. And we're talking about how all of that is related to everything. Everything is connected. And this is what I want to leave you with. Everything is connected in your life. And when you have that self-awareness and when you allow yourself to linger in that swag of being proud of what you have achieved, because a lot of times we only talk about our struggles and the hurdles, but you're dope and you're awesome with what you have right now. You're dope and awesome with what you have right now. And so that means you get to choose what your next move is going to be and how that's going to align with your vision for your future. So that's what I like to leave them with.
Thank you for joining us on the show, Charlene. Y'all, she said it. It's about choices, y'all. So make a choice to contact her. What's your email address?
You can go to email me at hello@sheconfidential.com. And the website is www.sheconfidential.com.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Charlene. And this is the Your Money Hour podcast.
Thank you.